mind, looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine.
All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Poole Locke YouTube channel. I'm James Locke. Today, as we always do, we're going to answer 2 more Ask James questions of the day. So we have this question from Alan. He says, I talked to the Social Security Administration recently to get some guidance about when I could take my Social Security benefits, but they couldn't help me. So what do you recommend? Alan, that's a great question, and you're right on. The Social Security Administration will not make recommendations. In fact, the employees, they're actually not allowed to make recommendations, and there's lots of things that can go into the decision as to when to take Social Security. There are hundreds of different ways to take Social Security, and sometimes the difference between the number 1 best way and the number 2 best way for you specifically, it can be an extra $100,000 or more over the course of your retirement. And when I say for you specifically, that means how long you're going to live, how long you're going to continue to work. Are you going to be working while you're collecting for a while, right? What other sources of income do you have? Will the Social Security benefits be taxed or not? Also, are you married? If genetically or maybe health-wise, one of you has a much longer life expectancy than the other. Also, if you're worried about survivor benefits, if one of you passes on. So getting lots of different variables in there, Alan, that you have to take into account. And that's why sometimes the difference between that number 1 best way and the number 2 best way, based upon your specific fact pattern, your life, it can be $100,000 or more of additional benefits over the course of your lifetime. So what's particularly important to understand is how this fits into your overall retirement income strategy. Many retirees make the mistake of viewing Social Security in isolation when it should be considered with your other income sources like dividends, interest, retirement account withdrawals, things like that. So one way to get an answer, Alan, is to work with an income specialist who can, a true income specialist. They'll have software that even Social Security Administration doesn't have to kind of put in lots of these different variables and to figure out all the combinations and permutations, what the top 3 methods are for you to, just start collecting your Social Security benefits. The specialist can also help you understand how your Social Security strategy affects your tax situation, your overall retirement income plan, right? That's one way of doing it. And the other way, I know I've answered questions in the past on how to maximize your Social Security, and you can find those questions in the YouTube history, I'm sure. But in fact, I recently kind of covered on how to combine Social Security claiming strategies with other income-producing investments to create a more stable retirement income stream. So Alan, hopefully that helps, and don't shortcut the decision. I can encourage you to make sure you take the time and you make the right decision for you. It could be one of the most important decisions or financial decisions you make as you're preparing for retirement. Remember, this discussion affects not just your immediate income, but potentially decades of retirement income for you and your spouse. And Alan, thank you so much for sending in your question. I know that a lot of people, their ears perk up when they hear, hey, potentially $100,000 more in benefits over the course of my lifetime. People want to know how they can potentially access that. So Alan, thanks so much for sending in your question. That's exactly why we focus so much on income planning and retirement, because these decisions can have such a significant impact on your long-term financial security. Amazing question, Alan. Thank you so much. If you, like Alan, would like to send in your question, you can do so. You can email it to poolelock@poolelock.com. Moving on to our second question. This is from Jeremy. He says, I do have one of those old-fashioned pension plans, so I feel okay about my income, but my family lives pretty long. Most people are living into their late 90s. So overall, I'm worried about inflation. All right, Jeremy, well, late 90s, you're right. You have to be worried about inflation when it comes to your investments, Or you better take up smoking and drinking so you don't live as long, right? I mean, it sounds silly, but those are your two alternatives, right? But you're right. So I assume that, your traditional pension plan probably does not have an inflation hedge. Now, some do, but it's rare. So, the few that are still around, right, most of them do not have an inflation hedge. So you feel good about your income early in retirement, but the longer you live, the more painful it becomes. Also, the same is true with Social Security, right? It gives you a cost of living raise, but as we've mentioned before, it doesn't really keep up with inflation. So Social Security keeps up maybe with halfway with inflation, right? So that's why they call inflation the silent killer. It's like high blood pressure in the medical field because it's just gradually tightens the financial noose, if you will, until things get harder and harder. So this is particularly important when we look at essential expenses like healthcare, which typically increases at a rate even higher than general inflation. So you're smart to be concerned about inflation, but you've got a gift. And, I talk about this all the time on my YouTube channel here. So, make sure that you listen to all the questions that come through here because you're going to need more income, right? And it sounds like you're getting that from Social Security and a pension, or at least through your early years in retirement, I should say. But later on, it's going to be a different story. So this actually puts you in a unique position to build what we call, a layered income strategy, where different investments mature and start, providing income at different points of your retirement journey. So you get to reinvest a lot of that income to create your own inflation hedge for the future. And that's powerful. A lot of our other YouTube viewers, they're not as fortunate as you because they need the income today, but they also need an inflation hedge on that income. One strategy worth considering is investing in dividend-growing stocks or funds that have a history of increasing their payments above the rate of inflation. So these can serve as a natural inflation hedge while providing growing income over time. So take advantage of that. And the best way you can, have an inflation hedge is to spend some of the income, but not all of it, right? Reinvesting some of it for the future. This approach of systematic reinvestment, especially in income-producing assets that have growth potential, can help build that inflation protection you've been looking for. Think of it as building your own personal pension supplement that grows over time. I hope that helps, Jeremy. I hope you can review some of the YouTube history where I talk more about keeping up with inflation and maximizing your income. I often touch on specific strategies that retirees can use to build that inflation protection into their retirement income plan. Because as you've correctly identified, it's not just about having enough income today. It's about growing income for potentially decades to come. It's a great question. Thank you so much. If you'd like to send in your questions, you can do so. You can email it to poollocke@poollocke.com. And if you liked what you heard today, go ahead, like, and subscribe to our channel. I am James Locke, your retirement income source. See everyone next time.
Money on my mind, looking for a dime. James Locke in the house, gonna help you shine. Retirement is near, don't you live in fear. Listen up, my friend, let me make it clear.